Alright guys, welcome back from another video on HAIKYU Fly High, and today we're going to talk about another future JP character, and this time it's going to be SP Kita. Now I know I'll probably jump, the order a bit, because I'll jump over Yaku to go straight to Kita, and in fact right now on JP it's only Shurba and Hanamaki, so Kita is actually very far in the future. But the reason I really want to cover Kita, especially before Asuma Miya's banner is going to be out, is because he actually has a huge amount of synergy with SP Asuma Miya, who will obviously be dropping on global this week. So that's kind of why I really want to get this video out of the way, so that you guys can make up your mind with the full future potential of SP Asuma Miya as well. So let's go through all of his skills one by one. So starting off with the skill 1, when Kita actually touches the ball, for every 1% of his defense technique, your receive will be increasing by 2% up to 180%. Now this can actually go up very fast, because first of all, if you just put a slot 6 potential to be defense technique main stat, that's already 15%. And to be honest, Kita also have ways to increase his own defense technique. So if we actually assume, for example, if you have 30% defense technique for Kita, what's that going to happen is that whenever he touches the ball, that's already an increase of 60% to his both receive and save. So it's actually going to be very easy to go all the way up to 180. And obviously 180 is a massive number as well. So this is already very insane just on that. But then the real mechanics for his skill 1 is actually the next part, which is that when he enters the core, everyone on both sides of the core is going to get 5 stacks of silence bar. And this is going to decrease your awareness and reflex by 10% up to 5 stacks. So that basically means it's going to be 50% reduction on awareness and reflex. Now, obviously, you guys can already see the synergy with Asuma Miya, because Asuma Miya's skill 1 actually gives a huge amount of buff only for players with less than 30% awareness. And if you're already able to reduce your size awareness by 50%, pretty much every single character on your side is going to easily meet Asuma Miya's condition. So you guys can already see the huge amount of synergy here. And then conversely, if the opponent doesn't actually play an SP Asuma Miya team, this massive 50% reduction on awareness can actually severely cripple a lot of the teams as well. So this can be extremely strong, and obviously especially tailored towards SP Asuma Miya. And we could even end up seeing a meta in the future where if you see Kita, you pretty much have to play SP Asuma Miya on your own side in order to counter that. So it can get very interesting, and obviously that actually raises the value of getting SP Asuma Miya as well. Now let's talk about his skill 2. So this is actually a safe skill, and when you do this, you will be getting 1 stack of silence debuff, and also at the same time, your players with this debuff will gain 10% attack and defense technique. And that's kind of what I said earlier. It's actually very easy for Kita to have very high defense technique and then easily stack up the receive and save stats up to the max. Now, personally, I'm still not too sure of how save mechanics actually work in this game, so I don't know how often this will be triggering. But the one thing to bear in mind is that you'll be getting 1 extra stack of debuff, and you might be thinking this is weird because you already start off with 5 stacks, so why do you need to get even more when it's only up to 5 stack? The reason is because then his skill 4, which is his receive ultimate. Now, when he actually receive, you will be removing 1 stack of each type of debuff, and obviously that includes his own silence debuff as well. And when you actually remove that, you will be increasing your attack and defense technique by further 15% as well. And because his silent debuff is actually applied to your whole team, this is basically attack and defense technique buff for your whole team as well. And once again, this is absolutely amazing. Technique buff are one of the more rare stats buff in this game, so the fact that you're able to increase this at this scale as well is absolutely insane. And then we move on to his skill 3, which is that whenever someone on your side actually loses a debuff, he's also getting a defense buff himself. And each defense buff is going to further increase his receive and save power by 2% up to 100 stacks. Now, once again, this can also stack up very fast, because remember, first of all, every single time when you lose a debuff, it's each type of debuff. So if, let's say, the enemy is actually playing, let's say, Tanaka or SP Kama V1, you could actually end up removing even more debuff on the side. And even if they don't have any of those, just look at your own silence buff, because there'll be 6 players on your team. Every single time you'll be getting 6 stacks of defense. So once again, it's actually going to be very easy to increase this and just stack it up very high as well. And even better, when he's actually on the court, whenever someone on your side touch the ball, each stack of defense is going to increase their strength up to 50%. And this makes Kita very unique. Like, we actually have loads of buffers in this game right now, which is able to just kind of consolidate and solely buff on one type of stat. So, for example, SP was Yumi is great strength buffer, Asumami is great technique buffer, same thing with SP Hiragami, very good technique buffer. However, if you actually take a look at Kita's kit, he is actually a bit of a hybrid. He's actually able to buff up your strength by 50%, as well as technique by potentially 15% plus another 10%, 25% technique buff as well. So altogether, that's actually insane amount of buff because first of all, it's across two different multiplier. And I'm gonna be honest, those numbers are not small. The 50% buff, I think that's more or less similar to what SP Wazumi is capable of giving as well. So that's actually an insane amount of buff, and because he's actually able to cover two complete different things, that makes him a very good addition and fairly universal no matter what kind of team build you're gonna have, because regardless of which stats you'll be missing, Kita is likely gonna be a great help there. Okay, so all of those are already very insane, and that's just a skill resistance one. Now let's talk about his skill resistance. So as skill resistance 2, at the end of each rally, the strength of your player with no more than 30% awareness is going to further increase Now, this is actually very similar to SP Asumu's condition, and obviously, like I said, if you have the silence buff, it should be very, very easy to reach that. So this is more or less granted, and now if you actually add in this 80% strength buff plus another 25% technique buff, absolutely insane. Like all of this in one single character, that's just absolutely crazy. And this is very consistent as well. It's not even like, for example, Hiragami can give up to 60% technique, but depending on how long the rally goes for, this is a very consistent 80% strength buff plus, a pretty consistent way of giving attack technique buff as well, because all you have to do is just to receive or to perform a save. So that's actually very, very consistent. And then the second part of his skill level 2 is at the end of each rally, the spirit of your player with the debuff will increase by 30%. So now not only you're improving your offensive buff, you're also now also able to improve your spirit. So before it was just strength and attack technique and defense technique, but now you're also adding on spirit. So obviously you're going to receive and also block a lot harder as well. And then skill level 4, this is where it gets even more interesting, because at the end of the first rally, after you enter the core, all of the debuff on your side is actually going to be clear. And your player's awareness is going to decrease by 100%, and strength is going to increase by 60% until he leaves the field. Now, let's just think about how much strength buff you're giving now, okay? You're able to give 50% hit, another 30% hit, another 60% hit. This is a 140% strength buff. That's even higher than what SP Shurub was able to give, only doing Team Morale Awakening. So this is absolutely insane to have all of this in just one single character. And then on top of that, this also removes a lot of inconsistency that you may actually be able to get in order to make sure your awareness actually dip low. Because like I said, I don't actually know how safe mechanics work, so I don't know how often you'll be getting a stack buff. And if we are not actually able to trigger safe much, then bear in mind you only stack up with 5 stacks of silence, and every single time when you do a receive, you'll be removing that. It could actually, if the rallies end up really, really long, you could actually get into some weird circumstance where your silence buff is not actually that high, and some of your character's awareness will creep up to more than the 30% threshold for SP Asumir and also for himself. However, now with this, you don't really care about the silence buff anymore. It's just a straight up 100% awareness deduction, and that is going to be crazy because this can pretty much give you that consistency guaranteed trigger condition for SP Asumir. And then at the same time, at the end of each rally, all the players on both sides is going to actually receive 1 stack of silence buff. And this is also very nice because this ensures that at the end of each rally, you'll be getting this. So at the start of the rally, you will guarantee to have 1 silence debuff so that when you do perform receive, you are able to get attack and defense technique. So before I was talking about how you are able to get a very consistent buff on him for both strength and technique, this is basically how he can get this consistent technique buff because he is now actually able to guarantee this 15% as long as he receives. And to solve that part, it's also going to be very easy because the last part of his skill level 4 is that the maximum cooldown for his receive skill is actually now going to be reduced by 8 necrosis. And now he's actually capable of spamming his receive ultimate. And because you always be ending the previous rally with 1 silence buff, that guarantees that when you use your receive, which is out of cooldown now, for the next rally, you'll be immediately able to remove the debuff and therefore immediately improve your attack and defense technique. So now Kita is actually able to guarantee a consistent, permanent 15% attack and technique buff plus a whooping 140% strength buff. That literally shoot him up in terms of the buffer to the top of the tier. Okay, he is going to be the best buffer end of period. Okay, so this is all absolutely amazing. So obviously Kita is an amazing character by itself, and you guys can already see the amount of synergy he's going to have with SP Asumamiya, and obviously this can further increase the value of Asumamiya, regardless whether or not you just want to take advantage of the synergy, where you are able to reduce your own weirdness, or potentially you want also, just a great fan of the Mia twins and actually want to build a Inarizaki school team, because right now it's also possible. We actually have 4 members from the Inarizaki school now as well. So you can actually have a school bond with full Inarizaki SP character as well. So obviously you have to bear all of this in mind before deciding whether or not you want to summon for SP as well. So yeah, so that's gonna be a quick preview for an absolutely insane character in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And did this affect your decision on Asumamiya?